Hi Pisces, it's Erin Scott here. Welcome to your September 2019 Alchemy Scope. My sincere apologies for the delay in getting this uploaded for you. Many problems technologically, and it's taken much too long on 4 of the 12 archetypes. So let's get started. There are 3 components to this particular scope. One is an art channeling, which we're going to start looking at now. The other is a divinatory message that came through for you, and the other is your astrology for the month. Let's take a look. We're starting to see this process for Pisces. And I'm starting with ink pen. We have these 3 horizontal lines, and then we have these 3 vertical angled lines, squiggly lines, and now these what look like teardrops emerging at the bottom here. So 3 levels and then 3 kind of iteration of expression coming through. So we're going to talk about all of this, but let's just look at this speeded up version of the process first. We have a tree that's emerging to the side of the lower horizontal line. And Seuss, Dr. Seuss is coming up. I wrote that by the tree. We have blue pastel going in these, what seem to be teardrops, okay? We have 2 that are like this turquoise blue, and then we have one that's like a royal blue. And I haven't, by the way, I haven't analyzed this yet. The processes happen, and the analysis is happening right now as I'm doing the audio for you. So we have this upper line also being blue, this angled upper line underneath Pisces. And then we have the green of the tree that's being filled in. But you'll notice that only the leaves of the tree, only the canopy of the tree is being colored in. The trunk didn't want to be filled in. And you see underneath I put air. So we'll talk about that as well. You can see here, so now there's red lines. So red coloration coming through these 2 smaller diagonal lines. And then again, the big, long blue expression. And then sneeze is coming up here, okay? So the reason why sneeze is coming up is my cat was, or actually, excuse me, I sneezed as this was happening. Why did I write this down? Because I don't sneeze during these. This is the first time it's happened, and you're the last one that I did. So there's something to the sneeze. We'll talk about that. You can see in between the squiggly lines, there's these spheres, and now there's a hand coming up from the side of the paper, and it's essentially it's waving hello. That's the implication or the indication. What I got before I drew it was a wave hello, but ultimately where it landed was holding the one sphere, which we're going to talk about that as well. There's no accidents where this stuff lands. And also, after I drew that, a neighbor outside said hello, said hi to somebody outside. So it was aligned. And now you can see these glasses are emerging like goggles. So they're these goggles being underlined next to these 2 spheres, which also look like big glasses or big goggles, okay? Now, that is the end of this, well, almost. I love you. Now, that's also something that the neighbor outside had said right as I was recording this. So let's do an analysis here, Pisces. It's very interesting. First of all, it's only appropriate to pay attention to the circumstances and the context of what's happening as I'm doing any channeling, any reading, any analysis. There is an alignment synchronistically, energetically to what's coming through. So we're going to talk about all of this. The first thing that came through was the P of Pisces became this elongated root. Okay? So something about Pisces. In fact, let's take a look. I'm going to look at the numerological alphabet here, this Pythagorean alphabet. What is P? P is number 7. P is number 7, the great mysteries, spirituality, that which cannot fully be known. Only so much can be seen physically to the naked eye. Many things are never to be seen. They're processes, they're organizing principles. So number 7 is this like implicated numerological process here with the P coming down. So number 7, so a narrative to your month ahead might be indeed spiritual process, which is not unusual. We're talking about Pisces here, right? Ruled by Neptune. And Neptune has some astrological implications for the narrative of this month astrologically, which we're going to look at. But in the meantime, we have the great mysteries as a narrative that's coming up. From that root, we have these 3 horizontal lines, Pisces, okay? A top, a middle, and a bottom. 3 layers, perhaps, of the self: mind, body, spirit, okay? Now, there's a couple things. The top one, perhaps, is mind. And we have these 3 angled lines here. 2 short red with a sneeze in between, and then we have this elongated blue. So let's start there. Mind, body, spirit. So the top layer is mind. With that, the red indicates anger, frustration, aggression, response, some sort of reactivity. It can also be passion, something that creates a response within you that instigates passion. Because there is the sneeze in between the 2 red lines of the mind, so maybe aggravation in the mind, and then the sneeze in between. A sneeze is an indication of sickness. A sneeze wants to get something out of the system that doesn't want to be there. Something goes into the nose and it wants to be sneezed out, right? So to exit the system. I think for Pisces this month, what I'm getting here is that mentally, there's anger that's arising that you might not be comfortable with. Anger that's arising that you don't want to have, that you want to get rid of or eliminate or heal immediately. But I have to tell you, anger has a function. And for you to deny or avoid your own, let's say, darkness or negative feelings is not the way of the growth edge this month. If anger is arising within you this month, pay attention to it. It has a message for you. It's telling you something. So wake up to it and see it. The sneeze is indicating you want to exit it out. But the thing is, you have to listen to it, see it. What is it talking to you about? What is it reflecting to you? What is the impetus for the anger? What's the inner dialogue? What's your inner perceptive lens about what's creating the anger within your belief system, your mind, and ultimately your emotional response? But you can see that there's the red line, the sneeze, the red line, and then the big fat blue line, which is spirituality. Now, the mind is also, Mercury rules the mind, but Mercury also rules communication. So the interesting thing, Pisces, is that what I'm getting here with this month is that you might have some anger arise and you don't like it. You want to eliminate it. So some of you might be overcompensating with Neptunian spirituality, maybe avoiding the darker stuff, avoiding the feelings of aggravation, frustration, and anger, and even rage that's coming up around whatever circumstance, right? So mentally, there might be a little bit of self-delusion for some of you. I hate to say it, but listen, this is about getting real, all right? We got to get real with what the patterns, what the wound sets, and what the growth arcs are. This particular month, there might be a tendency toward going into a little delusion to avoid feeling negativity. Maybe for some of you too, more wine ingestion, more beer, more drugs, more marijuana, something to take you out of the anger that you feel, so to take you out of the thoughts of anger that are arising. It's very important that you see this for what it is, especially with the goggles coming up underneath the blue line, okay? Now, if we go to that second line, this could be body. This could be physicality. So mind, body, spirit. So let's look at this physical midsection here. There are these squiggly lines. We started with 3 squiggly lines, Pisces, right? So squiggle can represent some sort of fluctuation, a fluctuation within the health, fluctuation within the physicality, some disruption, maybe something even for some of you neurologically. Maybe there's something that activates some sort of a tick in the body or a neurological response in the body, or an instability for some of you, almost energetic instability. Maybe you go into periods of exhaustion this month. Now, there are these two spheres that showed up between the squiggly lines, two spheres. So what is that indicating for you? Let me think about it. I mean, a sphere represents a holistic element or a holistic system, a holistic way of being. Because there's two spheres here, there's something about, maybe for some of you, you and a partner, you and a friend, you and a family member, somebody that you are having an intimate or a very close relationship with, where it is creating, the relationship is creating, especially because we have I love you over on the other side of the goggles. Love goggles. Some of you are seeing a relationship through love goggles, and it's creating instability within your body system. There's something, for some of you, there is dissonance in the relationship, and you must be willing to see it with more clarity. You must be willing to see with a real perceptive lens here, without the filter being driven by your own patterning of wounding. Because we all have that, but it's a matter of being clear about the internal story. What is the internal story driving our perception? Everybody has their own perception lens. Something here about instability within the body unit, or with regards to your physical reality, some instability, the wiggly lines, back and forth, two spheres, two holistic systems. Is it you in another relationship, somebody that you're in relationship with, somebody close to you? Doesn't have to be a love partner. It could be a family member. It could be a child. It could be a friend. It could be a boss. It could be a coworker or an employee or a client. It could be whoever. Somebody that you're having a close interaction with, that you're friendly with. Why? Because the hand is coming up saying hi. It's coming up and saying hello. Now the hand is covering one of the spheres. So that sphere could be you. You saying hello to the person. You being friendly to the person. Maybe for some of you, you're withholding the anger that you feel at the person because you don't want to be seen as a negative person. So maybe what you're doing, that blue line on the top, that mental Mercury, mind and communication, big fat swath of blue spirituality that you're putting out to the world, it's also coming down into that second sphere. So it means one of two things, Pisces. It either means that you're putting on a front, a friendly, spiritual, a sweet, angelic front, but yet you really hold anger toward this person that you're communicating with, or you're being friendly to somebody who's putting on some spiritual front and you're feeling a lot of anger and resentment around that. It's either one or the other, and it virtually is ultimately both, because the situation out there is always reflecting the situation in here, right? So there's something here about an inauthentic presentation. You're angry, yet you're showing something sweet friendliness, okay? Now, for some of you, you are really seeing through goggles. Like, you have to be mindful of your perception lens. How are you seeing reality this month? And with all of the stellium of planet in Virgo, there is a lot of discernment that's called into play. So we'll look at your astrology next, okay? So the I love you next to the goggles. This could be a love relationship for a lot of you, but not all of you. In one regard here, what we're talking about is the narrative of love and how it shows up in the relationship. So how is it that you express your love? Are you really feeling inside anger and resentment, yet you're presenting love and friendliness? At your own expense, by the way, because you're not aligned with your own inner truth in that matter. You're giving away your power and your boundary and your truth in how the other is being. So that lack of real truth and alignment with what's real in the relationship dynamic, it's not empowering you. In fact, it's taking away from your power. So some of you are going to know what I'm talking about with this, okay? Now, if we go to that lower line, this is spirit. Upper is mind, middle is body, lower is spirit. This spirit, there's some sadness here. The 3 teardrops, 2 of them turquoise, 1 of them royal blue. This could be with regards to 5th chakra communication and also 6th chakra, 3rd eye. So it's almost like with regards to what you're communicating and really what your 3rd eye is seeing, what intuitively you know to be the case, there's some sadness there. There's almost an existential sadness that might be activated for you over the course of this month. And these are like teardrops, so there could be some sadness, some grief. And it's aligned with the tree, okay? Now, the tree has the green of the canopy filled in, but the trunk not. And I really got, when I was drawing this, because it was a clear indication to not fill in the trunk, what I get here is a non-groundedness, Pisces. And this, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Any Piscean archetype out there, ascendants and sun specifically, you're going to totally understand what this is talking about. Because Pisces is Neptunian. It is non-physical matter. It is the consciousness field. That's what Pisces is. It represents the field of consciousness that has no boundary and that is not physically embodied. And with that being said, the trunk of the tree keeps it grounded into reality. The fact is that this month, the tree is representing an ungrounded way of operating, and that you're going to have to get real with some things. You're going to have to understand and own your own darkness. Your own darkness, your own humanness, okay? You are a whole being. You're not different than every other iteration of living system here on the planet and beyond. You are exactly like it all. So you are embodied in this physical life. There is shadow, and you must accept it. But the thing is, there's an ungrounded nature here about what the growth is that's showing up. Now, this is going to be a harsh message for some of you, but this is the truth of what I'm getting here, and I am going to communicate it. So the canopy of the tree is growth. This is green leaves. This is growth, and it's a huge canopy. So this is like what you're bringing forward creatively. This is maybe your work in the world. This is like the work, the career. This is the big canopy of what you bring forward creatively through the work that you do, through the energy that you put into things. But do you see that the trunk is empty? It's air. There's consciousness there, but there's no grounding into physical reality. Now, for some of you, what this indicates is that you have a lot of ideas for creative action, but you're not implementing it into physical reality. For others of you, it indicates a non-grounded nature with what you have created as your world, what is showing up, what you've created as the facade, really. The creative manifestations of your world. There's something ungrounded with it. Now, Seuss is written there, Dr. Seuss. I happen to own 2 pieces of Dr. Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss is all about the fantastical. Now, you're ruled by Neptune, which is the storyteller. This is the ability to imagine and connect to the etheric. This is the ability to visualize and to fantasize. There's nothing wrong with Neptune. There's everything right with Neptune. But Neptune also has its growth edges, just like every other planet, just like every other archetype. So Pisces, for you, Seuss is representing a couple of things. One is whimsical. One is imagination. One is fantastical. What is the ideal? What is the optimal? What is the wonderful, delightful realities that we want to come into being on this planet, right? For you, I see that you have some ideas coming to you. And by the way, with that lower horizontal line with those 3 teardrops, this is the spiritual sector, but the blue also represents your emotionality. And yes, there could be some existential kind of grief, sadness that you're tapping into, possibly on the collective level, but you're also feeling into it emotionally, okay? And what I get is that what you want and what you really are emotionally resonant with is bringing forward an ideal reality, a whimsical, wonderful, delightful, sweet, and silly reality. This is not going to apply to all of you distinctly with those terms, but that thematic is really part of your growth narrative this month. Something about bringing forward, manifesting the whimsical delights of what life can be. Keep in mind, Neptune rules the ideal, okay? The tree represents something of nature, something of natural beauty. But again, it's without grounding here. So you have a lot of ideas that are there, even for those of you where the tree canopy represents the work that you've created in this world and the career that you do have currently. The ungrounded tree represents ideas only, and it's not put into physical form. The growth edge for you, I would say just off the top here, is to bring things into physical form. Okay, so with regards to the spiritual narrative that you're living, you have ideal, beautiful ideas, and they are to be put into manifest form. So when we look at the astrology, we'll take a look at that. Very interesting, Pisces. Now, let's take a look at the divination that came through for you. Now, this is very, very interesting. So if you look, this particular card, I went out in nature at the end of August for all of the archetypes, and went into session and pulled these growth edges for you. Now, I love this for you. Absolutely love it. Now, number one, I pulled for all the signs this palmistry deck. Now, if you notice in the artwork, the hand essentially looks the same, right? The way the palm is outstretched with the highlighted thumb there for you is very much aligned with the art that came through, right? Which is interesting because yours is the only one that got a hand pretty much over the course of this cycle. So with regards to your growth edge, what are you to mature and evolve this month in September? Complete what you start. This is the reflection. It is sometimes easy to begin a new project, especially if we are excited about it. But the longer it takes, the harder it becomes to finish. At the point where we feel the excitement dwindling, we need to return to the initial enthusiasm in order to finish. Set some deadlines for yourself. Make a checklist and follow through on the checklist. Don't worry about perfection, Pisces. If you falter, forgive yourself. Readjust the timeline and keep going. Now, the reason why this is so perfectly aligned with the art channeling is if indeed you have these ideas, or even if you've started projects, the fact that you've not completed them indicates that empty, colorless trunk, that they're not grounded into physical form yet. This is the month to attend. This is the month, this Virgo-focused month, to attend, to really step up and get to work, quite literally, and make things manifest, which is your polar opposite, Virgo. This is about physical form. So that's the focus, right? Now, let's take a look at the astrology here, Pisces, for your month. Now, when we're looking at this astrology narrative here, I pulled up the chart for the Virgo new moon. Why? Because this literally is aligned with this new moon cycle, which is the month of September. Now, you can see that what you have had in your first house for a while is Neptune. Neptune at 17 degrees as we entered this month of September. Now, in this particular narrative, Black Moon Lilith was conjunct that Neptune. And Neptune and Black Moon Lilith are opposed Virgo. Virgo focus in your relationship sector. Now, firstly, Neptune in the first house. Of course, Neptune rules your sign. It rules your archetype. And Neptune and Pisces first house orientation is about, number one, having a spiritual identity, thinking of yourself as the spiritual one, the one that's here to bring forward love and compassion and care, empathy for the greater collective, coming from a place of love, generalized source field love. That is part of who your identity is, how you identify yourself naturally. With Lilith there, however, Black Moon Lilith is the narrative of I don't matter, I'm not valuable. spirituality and my identity to spirituality doesn't matter. People aren't listening to it. People aren't attending to it. I'm not being heard. I'm not being understood. I'm being erased. My identity as a spiritual person in this world is not being cared for. It doesn't matter to people. Now, you have to know that that is your own internal blueprint. So this is your own narrative that you hold. As long as you don't value your own spiritual, Neptunian, storytelling, Seussian spiritual orientation, others aren't going to respect it. They're not going to know that it matters. So the issue here, Pisces, is during this month of September, there's that opposition to that plethora of planets, that stellium of planetary functional energy in Virgo in the 7th house of people, in the 7th house of relationships. So for you, very much about your identity versus other, and maybe an indication here that there's a lot of, let's say, critical energy that you might be experiencing, especially in the first half of September, coming from others. So you might experience a lot of critical, analytic, too mental, too proof-oriented orientation by the people in your world. Well, that's part of the narrative that you're growing this month, naturally, okay? That being said, you also have the square of all of those planets in Virgo squaring the 10th house, Sagittarius, Jupiter, meaning your work as a teacher. Now, whether those of you listening are an actual teacher or whether you're a model of the lifestyle that you wish to impart wisdom and knowledge to others about, it doesn't matter. But what we're talking about here is your working career as a teacher of some sort, a model of some sort, is squaring this practical, mercurial, analytical, logistical, physical energy, work energy, and also health energy. The health of relationships is actually very much up for you, can I just say? And that very much goes along with the narrative that came forward in the art channeling. The two spheres and the squiggle lines in between. There is some dissonance that you're working with relationships. Here in the chart, yes, stellium of planetary energy in relationships, in Virgo, which is highly critical. These are people that can be too proof-oriented for you, right? Just by the nature of the Piscean archetype. But with all the energy there, it's exacerbated this month. The fact is, the square of those planets up to Jupiter, again, you might be feeling with your work and your career in the world a little bit of pushback from people. People want you to prove yourself a little bit more. They're asking you to really explain your ideas about things. That's what I'm getting here, that there's a lot of, okay, provide the proof, Pisces. Like, I want to see your credentials. I want to see why you feel this way. I don't want to just hear you spouting your spiritual beliefs about X, Y, and Z. I want to know why and what and how. So there's a lot of pressure, I would say, for Pisces. Again, especially the first half of the month, to come up with the goods, right? Now, there's also from that 7th house of planetary focus in Virgo, trining the Pluto, South Node, and Saturn in Capricorn, 11th house. This is the house of friends and groups, Pisces. You have been going through it. The archetype of Pisces has been, for a while now, going through great transformation, shift, and change when it comes to their friend groups, their organization relations, like who they're connected to organizationally, whether you work for an NGO or a nonprofit of some sort, or the groups of friends that you've traditionally been aligned with. It has been changing. And indeed, there's a new manifest form of the groups that you have that's been wanting to push forward, right? So this has been challenging, especially with the trine to all of that, let's say, more critical energy with regards to Virgo relationships. Now, the trine is also a benefic, highly benefic energy. So there's an easy flow of transformational energy that's activated with groups and with relationships. But in addition to that, there's benefic work growth and evolution happening with Pisces this month. Why? Because the transformation that's happening for you with regards to you as a humanitarian, 11th house Capricorn, is changing with regards to the work that you do. Why? Because it's in Capricorn. And the trine to 7th house Virgo, which Virgo rules many things, including your day-to-day work, your day-to-day routine. This is also being benefically highlighted. So the work that you do, the career that you have, the groups and the people that you're connected to through your work is all changing. And there is some benefic alteration, evolution, new iteration happening for you, okay? In addition to that, there's change happening with your mind, with your thoughts, with your thinking, with the downloads you're getting, and with the way you communicate in a way that is more solid and practical. Why do I say that when you have Uranus in Taurus in the 3rd house? Uranus in the 3rd can create a lot of very active mind, a very a lot of thoughts, a lot of downloads, a lot of thinking, a lot of spinning, in fact. However, it's also insights and intuitions and genius things that can come through your thoughts and your thinking. With regards to the way you communicate, there's some new, maybe even sudden, maybe even unforeseen way of communications coming through that will be practically beneficial for you and even perhaps financially beneficial for you, connected to the grand earth trine that we see there. So Uranus down in that 3rd house in Taurus, trining Pluto's south node Saturn in the 11th, trining the stellium of planetary energy in Virgo in the 7th. For you, community, friends, and group are all benefically oriented, and communications being somehow grounded with your genius. Some genius idea coming through that's grounded, that wants to become grounded. It wants to. The growth for you is to put it into physical form, to put the work in. That's the growth edge for you this month. That grand earth trine is giving you the energetic help and aid naturally to put something practical, something genius, something that comes to you via your intuitive mind and wants to come out via writing, coursework, or oral speaking and communications, maybe via video vlogging or writing and blogging. Something wants to come through that's more grounded. It's genius, but yet it's grounded. That's the benefic aspect of this grand earth trine for you, really implicated with that Uranus 3rd house genius coming through in a grounded way. This is the month to put things into action and to create physical form with the ideas that you have, dear Pisces. Now, I'll have more coming through for you in October. Because you're the last posting that I'm putting up for this month, you'll be the first posting that I'm putting up in October. I am having very good sales on myriad services happening this month of September. Membership details, 2020 analysis details, which I would recommend, natal analysis, in-depth, very profound. It's a foundational tool. Sales on all this stuff is happening, and you can see all the information below. Okay, Pisces, until next month, I send you much love. Bye-bye.